I don't think I am prone to stress.
Oh, I think I do get stressed.
I try to give an outward appearance of being laid back.
Stressed.
Laid back, I would say.
Pretty stressed.
I wouldn't say laid back.
Prone to stress.
Don't act surprised, you know exactly what you did.
Is there nothing out of this group of people, there's nothing that you want to know?
Don't stand outside. I'll call you back in when you're actually going to be quiet.
In January 2007, Teachers TV conducted a unique experiment into the level of stress in a typical British secondary school. How Stressed is Your School combined cutting-edge scientific experiments with detailed psychological staff profiles and a week-long observation of King's Langley school staff in action. In the second programme in our new series on stress, two top psychologists used the data gathered during this experiment to look at the way school leaders can manage stress within their schools.
School managers are a very important part of the stress management process in a school.
If you're going to be an effective head teacher, there is no doubt that you've got to have very, very effective stress management strategies. Because if you can't manage stress, then you absolutely should not do the job, because it will destroy you. And in doing so, you're probably going to seriously damage the school and the lives of the people who work and learn there.
Before letting Teachers TV into his school, head teacher Gary Lewis didn't believe that stress could be utterly disabling.
I've been brought up in such a way that really you don't do stress, you just simply get on with life. That's the way my parents brought me up and so on. So I've never really shown a great deal of sympathy.
You frequently hear people in management jobs, whether it's in a school or elsewhere, use the kind of buck-up approach to kind of pressure and stress. You know, just buck up, deal with it, don't whinge and everything else. I don't think that's really very useful, actually, because individuals are suffering for whatever reason.
When people have got to the stage where they're suffering from stress, that's part of the problem, is that they can't just snap out of it, even though they would like to.
I don't think it's too strong a term to say that really I had a road to Damascus moment following the film where I suppose in discussion with my wife I finally admitted that I am thoroughly stressed. And the one thing that came out of the programme is part and parcel is accepting that we live stressful lives, and my role as a head teacher is probably very stressful, but we can do something about it.
Opening a dialogue with staff about what they need to improve their well-being can help reduce stress. And quite small changes can have a big impact on staff morale.
One of the key ways of managing stress is to actually talk to staff about what would help them. So it may be about, first of all, talking about what the issues are, what the sources of stress are, and then talking about, well, how can we together find solutions to that?
We've actually managed to persuade Gary to provide us with somebody who makes tea and coffee for us in the mornings at break time, which saves us a tremendous amount of time, and it's really quite relaxing to go into the staff room now, have a cuppa with a biscuit and sit down and have a chat.
It's very rarely appropriate for the employer to impose some kind of solution. How can they be sure that that's what's actually going to make the difference? So it's that consultation that I think is an important part of it.
Inspired by a yoga class laid on earlier in the year by Teachers TV, the school staff have come up with a relaxing way to end the week.
We have now got, get this, a full-blown Pilates programme that we pay for.
We started 3 weeks ago on Friday, and we've had a wonderful time.
We have 22, I have to say they're all female members of staff, but I think we'll change that shortly.
I could see myself going along and having a laugh, and I'm told that having a laugh reduces stress, so, you know, perhaps I should turn up on a Friday afternoon.
And I was speaking to one of the members, my deputy, Fiona, who goes to it, and she says, it's not just the sitting around doing the Pilates, and we've hired a proper Pilates teacher. It's the fact that we have fun, and we chat about it, and we laugh at each other's, tracksuit bottoms or whatever it may be. And quite clearly, there's a support mechanism already developing that I wouldn't have necessarily thought would have evolved directly from just simply running a Pilates course.
Keeping fit is both a way of protecting yourself from the suffering stress, but also a way of burning off stress. So if you can take a good dose of exercise, if you like, that can actually help relieve the stresses that you might have suffered during the day.
Many conscientious assistant heads, like Chris Pearce, can be in danger of being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of work they have to do as managers and senior teachers.
It's the multifaceted nature of the job. It's keeping so many balls in the air at once, really. I mean, there's a teaching commitment, line management of a number of learning areas, a complete key stage. Plus the things that you can't predict, the pastoral issues, the personnel issues. Quite frequently, a whole day will be wiped out by something that you couldn't predict, couldn't see coming.
Multitasking and juggling lots of different tasks, I think, is very difficult, there's always this fear that you're going to drop one of the balls, particularly if there's going to be one of the balls might be an interruption. So you're happily juggling whatever it might be, and then suddenly this extra thing gets thrown at you. I think one of the important ways of handling that is to have quite clear priorities about what things you need to get done.
You should take all your paperwork, everything you have to do, put it in order, and do the most important things first and the least important things last, or even throw some of those things away.
At the moment, I've got an enormous skyscraper of paper on my desk. Now, I could find that enormously stressful. As it happens, any one of those pieces of paper I could spend an hour dealing with, but I'm now beginning to look at the paper and think, what difference is that going to make? Is it going to improve anybody's life here at school? And if it's not, I'm likely to throw it away.
Hi, Tom.
Since the making of the previous series on stress, Gary Lewis realises he absolutely must delegate.
Because things were getting a little bit on top of me, I met with my deputy head and I said, look, I can't cope with everything at the moment and I'm struggling, and in certain areas I feel as if I'm drowning. The response from her was, well, I don't know, I expected it to be any different, but I was still surprised. It was a sense of huge relief on her part. She actually said to me, that is the first time you have ever shown your soft underbelly. And she said, I feel great because of it.
Making sure that you delegate some of your work will relieve your overload. It is really important that you do that. Keeping everything to yourself and thinking you're indispensable and you're the only one who can do it is a stress problem for you, a big one.
Delegating is a really important stress management technique, if you like, in that it's about making sure that you're not taking on everything. And sometimes there are things that you don't need to do, or that you actually are better delegating because somebody else will do it better.
Failing to delegate is a prime cause of stress as school leaders become increasingly tired.
You know, teaching is a very exhausting business. It is important, I think, for the individual to find ways of kind of relaxing during the day. That's partly up to them, occasionally getting outside the school, going outside, taking a short walk, and so on. I think it's important also for head teachers and school managers to think about ways in which they can help take some of the load off during the course of the day.
There is research that shows that working longer hours doesn't actually achieve more work output. So it's not necessarily about the longer you're there, the more you achieve. It's about making sure that the time that you are in work is actually used productively and that you get the most out of the hours that you spend working.
We're going to, by agreement, and I think it suits you as well.
Given the numbers of meetings school leaders have, are there any ways of making them less stressful?
It's really important that meetings are well managed. And that's partly about being clear what the meeting's about and what you want to achieve during the meeting.
Have a time allotted for each item. Put the most important items up first, because these are the things you have to deal with, and have a time for that item and go down the list.
I've heard it said that if you hold all your meetings standing up, they're much more efficient and you get through the material in much quicker time.
And then when you hold a meeting is important. Hold it where there's an event going to occur which is going to have to end it. Like, for example, lunchtime. Hold the meeting at 12 to 12:30 because you know you have the half hour, you know people are going to get hungry and they're going to deal with the issue. Don't keep an open-ended time.
With pupils now able to phone home on their mobiles to give a sometimes highly inaccurate account of an incident, school managers increasingly find themselves having to pacify angry parents.
In fact, phoning people very shortly after an incident has taken place is actually counterproductive, because you've still got a personal and emotional involvement yourself. You haven't had time to reflect and consider the facts. Just mull them over, really.
Leave it a couple of hours before we telephone. Think about what we intend to achieve from the telephone. Do we want to win? Well, probably not, because what does a victory mean? Nothing.
Time out. It's halftime now. And wait a period of time, an hour or two, to think through the situation that's just occurred and how you might react. You'll be less emotional, less reactive.
What we want is a situation where the parent goes away feeling that they've had their say, they've listened to both sides, and they're confident and comfortable that things have progressed. Very rarely do parents go away feeling that there's been a satisfactory conclusion if the school has won a victory over them. It may make us feel a little bit better, particularly if we felt the situation was unfair, but it's certainly not going to create a non-stressful environment in the future.
A big issue for some head teachers is staff retention, especially in areas with plenty of competition from other schools. The questionnaires at King's Langley School showed that while it has an exceptionally strong collegiate atmosphere, 40% of the teachers said they were considering leaving the school within 12 months.
Retaining people in a school is really quite a critical area for a lot of head teachers. It's really very, very important. And it's all about morale. My own view is creating a community, a family, and is the most important thing.
To build a culture in which people support one another, so that that staff feel that they can turn to their colleagues for support, that they can turn to the management to support, and that they're being listened to and they're being valued.
Follow that up by some reward for them, even if it means a minor promotion, taking some fund to give them money that they can do a certain kind of activity, any kind of reward system. It doesn't have to be monetary. It certainly has to be psychological. But that's what creates good morale. But that kind of atmosphere, I think, can be created and should be created if you want to retain people.
Having a whole week focused on stress made head teacher Gary Lewis and his management team realise how their actions can impact on the whole school, for better or worse.
Leadership can be a really key way of keeping a workforce motivated, engaged, and a sense of sort of shared objectives. So if you've got a head teacher who's really clear about what they want to achieve and really good at explaining that to everybody in the school, then that head can engender a sense of everybody pulling together.
They have to create the atmosphere and the climate for all the other teachers. The supportive climate, the ability to say when you've got a problem.
So giving people clear feedback, helping them understand what you expect from them, making their role absolutely clear to them, their objectives. And then when they do well, giving them praise, giving them positive feedback.
Manage people by praise and reward and not by fault finding. Create the right atmosphere, manage them well, and you'll have much less stress.
For more tips on how to reduce stress throughout your school, go to the resources page on our website, teachers.tv/stress.